Hey guys, so welcome to Your Money Your Way number 2. And so today's video, I had to think about that, is going to be on basic banking terms. And these are things that when you go up to the teller, you might be telling that person. Okay, now just to get started, we're going to go over the basic of basics, which includes deposits. Deposits mean you're going to take money and you're going to put it into your account with that financial institution. You do have to have an account with them already, but you can also make an initial deposit when you're opening a new account. Withdrawals. Now, withdraw is mostly going to be from either a checking or savings. You can only withdraw from an account that your name is on. Deposits you can make to anybody. And what else? Withdrawals, checking from savings. Make sure to keep in mind that withdrawals, you do have that 6 limit per month for the savings account. That is a federal regulation. And the withdrawals for a withdrawal to count, it actually has to either let's say you take the money out of your savings from online and you put it into a different account, or let's say you take it from the ATM. Now, if you do it with a teller, usually it does not count as part of the 6 per month, okay? Now, doing a withdrawal from a loan is different. There are certain loans that you can do this with, but we're going to talk about that when I go over types of loans with you guys, so I'm not going to think about that. But cash withdrawals, you can do check withdrawals, and we're going to go over checks in just a second. Deposits, if you're doing check deposits, the check actually has to have your name on it. There are certain financial institutions that will make an exception and have you legally sign over the check to the other person you want to deposit into. Now, that only is needed when you're depositing your check into an account that doesn't have your name on it and the other person is there with you and the financial institution is okay. It is a process, guys. Just get your own account. Next, payments. Payments can go to a lot of stuff, but oftentimes it's gonna go to a loan, okay? Can be a mortgage loan, an auto loan, a credit card, a HELOC, anything, a line of credit. Those all take loans. Those are also different types of loans, which I will go over in another thing because that is way too long. But payments just means you're taking money, giving it to the financial institution to cover debt that you have with them. That reduces the amount that you owe them so that you don't keep accumulating or you don't keep getting interest off of that. Transfers. Now, transfers is different from wires, okay? Transfers, we're going to talk about this first, can be from your account to your own account. Let's say you're checking to your savings. It can also be from your checking to someone else's checking. But transfers do have to be within the same financial institution, which means, just as an example, I am not affiliated with this company at all. If you have a Chase account, you can only do a transfer to another Chase person. There are exceptions to this though, and this is only when speaking about credit unions. The reason I say financial institution all the time is because a bank is different from a credit union. Credit unions actually have what's called a co-op network. Not all credit unions are on this network though. Keep that in mind. If a credit union feels that they're big enough to sustain their own branches, they might not opt into this network. But what it allows is for one credit union member to actually do transactions on another credit union. Or maybe you're a credit union member from Utah and you're in California. If you go to a co-op network, they can actually transact on your account, including transfers. That is the only time that you can transfer from one financial institution to the other. Not all credit unions are the same credit union. So if you have if you have A credit union, that's not going to be the same as B credit union. It's the same as saying Chase and B of A are the same. Still not affiliated with those companies, but you got to keep that in mind because they're still their own businesses. It's just that they're on a network that allows you to transact between the two, or you can just go into one if you want. But yeah, so that is the one little exception to transfers. Transfers are usually electronic, so you don't see any cash. But it is also possible to transfer from a loan, which I will explain in a different video. Next one. So we've gone over, those are the basic like terms. If you guys have questions, feel free to message me. I can always elaborate more on those if I'm a little confusing. Next one is notary. Notary is not something that you'll find in every financial institution. I've been to some that have several employees that do notary. Others who have one designated employee who does it, and some that have none, and they'll refer you to a different business that does it. Notary costs money. Oftentimes, I think it's like $10 or so, but it also depends on the person. So you gotta ask them what their rate is. What a notary does, it legally shows that you have a witness to the documents that they're signing for you. You can also use a notary to basically back up maybe a transaction, like a personal transaction that you're doing with someone else. So let's say you're selling a car and I'm selling a car to person B for $5,000. In order to show that I've given them the car and they've given me the money, we can have documents made and have them notarized, so neither person can come back and say you didn't give me the car or you didn't give me all the money. Notary shows that, hey, yes you did, and we have a witness. Notary, you always have to have all parties that are involved sign the document in front of the person who's witnessing it, who will then also stamp and sign the documents. This one is a little complicated, but usually you'll know when you need it when a business requests it, okay? Next, we're going to go into the lovely cashier's checks and traveler's checks. Yes, I know there's money orders too. That's going to be in between. Cashier's checks is something that you'll ask a teller for when, let's say, you need a check that is certified funds. A lot of businesses like cashier's checks because they're prepaid for, which means if I want a cashier's check for $500, I gotta give the teller $500 either from my account or in cash, something or another, okay? But it's paid for. One thing to keep in mind that a lot of people misconstrued is the fact that cashier's checks, it's not cash. Yes, they do have the word cash in it within the word cashier, but it's still a check, which means if, let's say, sometimes a lot of people use cashier's checks to purchase a car from a dealership, that check can still be placed on hold if it's a large amount or for different reasons, really. Just keep in mind, there's a possibility it might still be placed on hold, and no, it's not equivalent to cash. The reason I say this is usually financial institutions, if you give them cash for anything, the credit is immediate, okay? Check, on the other hand, because they have to make sure the other person has the funds and they have to make sure the check processes properly, it might take some time for it to actually go into your account without bouncing back. What that means is that if a check bounces, it means there wasn't the money in the account, so obviously the financial institution didn't pay it, so they're actually going to send you the check back. I will do a separate video on how to properly fill out a check and explain what happens when you bounce a check or a check bounces off of your account. But yeah, just know, oftentimes, keep in mind too, cashier's check, they might cost money depending on your financial institution. I've heard of some who don't charge just because of the fact that you're either their customer or member, others that charge per check, so sometimes it can get pretty pricey, but a lot of the times you can either have a high level account with the financial institution and have that cashier's check fee waived, or there's other ways around it. You just gotta see where you're banking at. Traveler's checks. This is something that is definitely starting to go away, but traveler's checks are there's still checks that you purchase as well with funds, but you can take it supposedly anywhere in the world and be able to cash it at a financial institution there and be able to use the money. This just allows you to not have to have the cash in hand, so that, you know, if you get mugged, you can hide it or something. At the same time, you've already paid for it, so I don't understand that concept too much. The reason I say that this thing is something that's kind of going away is because majority of the financial institutions, big and small, don't offer to do cashier's or traveler's checks anymore. They'll often refer you to the American Express website, who is the issuer of these checks, and you oftentimes have to order them through there. Now, this isn't true of other different countries, because I see a lot of people from other countries come into the US with traveler's checks. So, I mean, it is still considered very safe to an extent. If you lose it, it's still gone though. Okay. Next but not least, wires. This goes very closely with transfers that we spoke of earlier. If you guys recall, transfers you can only do within your financial institution unless you have a credit union that is on the co-op network. Wires, you can send them anywhere you like. That means you can send them from B of A to Chase, from the US to China, whatever you want. I ain't Chinese, by the way, I just happen to say China. But now the biggest thing about wires though is they cost money. A domestic wire, which is a wire that you're sending within the States, is usually going to cost less than an international wire. Oftentimes though, either way, they're going to have a fee because of the fact that you're going from one financial institution to another, and sometimes if it's from one country to another, it's even more. It's still very possible to have these wire fees waived depending on the type of account that you have with your financial institution, or just what you just got to check with your financial institution to see if you can get it waived. Now, wire transfers are a lot more difficult than regular transfers, because of the fact that wire transfers require you don't need to know your information, of course, but for the other person's information, you got to know their name, their address, their account number, the routing number, sometimes SWIFT or IBAN number, which is going to be sometimes take the place of the routing number, their account number, of course, if I haven't said that already, their bank's name, their bank's address, and sometimes wires require an intermediary bank as well. This is something, if you guys would like, I can elaborate on, but oftentimes it's easier if you're doing a wire transfer to have whoever you're sending that money to go to their financial institution and ask them for the wire information required to receive money from wherever you're from, okay? And that'll make things a lot easier. But yeah, wires. And also wires, it's a lot. You can send it oftentimes for any amount. Usually wires are done to close out escrow, which means once you finished buying a house and you gotta send the final payment to them, this is what they ask for. Cashier's checks, sometimes you have to get the limit cleared with your financial institution if it's too big of an amount. So sometimes this can be a little complicated. Last but not least, I promise I am almost done. We're going to go into the different kinds of cards there are. And this is going to be pretty brief and simple and to the point, because this is still something that if you go into your financial institution, you might request from them. First off, debit cards. Debit cards can be linked to checking or savings accounts. These are the cards that you're able to make purchases with and use at the ATM. Keep in mind, if someone steals your debit card number, they can also make purchases from your account. So you gotta be careful and cautious of where you're using this. Don't lose it either. Usually, initially, when you receive the debit card, you don't have to pay any fee. But it is possible that if you are one of those people that constantly lose their debit cards, your financial institution might / probably will start charging you to get a debit card again, because you gotta keep in mind it costs them money to print these because it has your personal number on it, your name on it, a different expiration, security, blah blah blah. Debit cards do also have limits. I don't care who you are, you have some type of limit on here. Limits vary though. Now, ATM limit means you can only withdraw a certain amount of cash out of the ATM per day. There are also purchase limits. This is because debit cards can be linked to student, kids, or adult accounts. So oftentimes it will depend on the type of account the debit card is linked to. I always recommend, if you're doing a large purchase or you need extra cash, go into the branch for the big cash, or if you're doing a large purchase with your debit card, inform them at least 24 hours in advance, just so they don't block your card before you make the purchase, because it is possible for them to do that, because they might be thinking that someone else has your card and they are just going on a shopping spree with it. Okay, so be very cautious. One thing that's a little simpler from a debit card is the ATM card. With an ATM card, you cannot make purchases and you cannot do online shopping or anything like that. You can only go to a physical ATM and withdraw money. You can also go into the financial institution and, of course, and withdraw money. ATM cards, though, are oftentimes only linked to the savings account. Sometimes you can, if let's say you want to keep yourself on a short leash, you can have your, you can decline the debit card and request an ATM card just so you don't spend too much. I think I accidentally explained this wrong though, sorry. Debit cards cannot be linked to, purchase-wise I mean, to a savings account because it requires transactions. So, I mean, you can have a savings account linked onto your debit card for when you go to the ATM. So it means you put your card in, you enter your PIN number, which is your password. Both the ATM and the debit card will have a PIN number, and you'll be able to see your checking and your savings account. But when you go to make a purchase, all the money comes out of here, okay? And which is linked to your checking account. ATM card has an ATM limit. Neither have fees, and both are linked, can be linked. Like ATM card, you can still go and have your checking account linked to it, but you can't make a purchase with it. That's the biggest thing, okay? Last but not least is the dreaded credit card. Credit card is extremely different from ATM and debit card because it's credit. This is considered a type of loan because you're technically borrowing money from the financial institution. You have to pay that back, and if you don't do it within a timely manner, you get interest. And it's not good interest where you're receiving money, it's interest where you pay them money, okay? So unlike ATM and debit cards, credit cards require you, the person who is applying for this loan, to have your credit run. Credit is a score that, and I'll go into that later on, that's way too complicated, but basically they run your credit, and they'll let you know how much they'll qualify you up to. From there, that'll be your credit limit. You can choose to decline or request a lower credit amount, or you can accept it. So, I mean, if you like it, you can accept it. Some people don't like too high of a credit limit only because they don't want the possibility of spending that much money. Credit cards, the way they work is you have a closing period, which is oftentimes a month. So let's say from January 1st to January 30th, that is one period. You also have a due date. So oftentimes they're going to process your transactions, and they'll give you a date each month that you have to make a payment by for whatever the balance was. Now, you guys got to keep in mind that the balance, okay, usually if you get a credit card statement, they'll let you know your payment is due on this day for this amount. The amount shown on that credit card statement will be different from the balance that you see on your updated, like regularly updated online statement per se. because of the fact that if you've made any purchases after the cutoff date, so let's say my cutoff date ended on January 30th and I made a purchase February 2nd, my balance online is going to also add in that purchase from the 2nd to the total. So you always have to look at your statement for that month to see how much you're paying. I don't want to give you guys exact dates to the period ending and the payment dates, because those are things that you will speak to and find out about from your financial institution. Otherwise, credit cards runs your credit, you have a limit. One of the biggest things I want you guys to understand too, when you guys see those 0% APRs and whatever, those are oftentimes only for purchases. If you do, let's say, a cash advance or anything like that, not only might you get interest off of the balance that you're gonna add on to the credit card, you actually might have a fee because you're taking cash out from a credit card, okay? Be careful when you're using these. And yes, you do have to pay the money back. So let's say in January, my credit limit is $500 and I use $300. That means I have to pay back $300 by my due date, or I pay interest off of it. Your interest is also listed on the agreement packet they'll give you once you agree to get the credit card. You do see the interest rate beforehand, so you can decide from there. I've seen good interest rates, I've seen high interest rates. My biggest thing, and that you guys gotta understand, is if you guys pay the full balance each time your payments are due, you don't have interest, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm really sorry that was such a bombardment of information, but if you guys do have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy to elaborate, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry it was so long. Bye!